Welcome to Files of the Damned. Tonight, we revisit a case from post-war London. A killer with a charming smile, a spotless suit, and a habit so gruesome it dissolved his victims into liquid. London, 1944. The war was ending, but the city remained draped in fog, rubble, and quiet desperation. In a modest hotel near Kensington, a man named John George Hay checked in under his real name. Polite, clean-shaven, and always dressed in gray. He was charming, well-spoken, and never raised suspicion among the desk staff, who admired his impeccable manners and punctual tea habits. What they didn't know was that Hay already had one victim dissolving in acid inside a rented basement not far from the hotel. Born in 1909, Hay was raised in a strict religious household in Yorkshire, where even laughter was considered sinful. His parents were Plymouth Brethren, a severe sect that believed the world was filled with corruption and temptation. As a child, he claimed to see visions, sometimes of angels, sometimes of shadows that walked alongside him when no one else was near. He showed promise in school, but preferred isolation, often found drawing machinery or taking apart watches to see how the inside worked. After a brief stint as an apprentice engineer, Hay turned to fraud, forging documents and stealing cars, earning his first prison sentence by 1934. It was in prison that he encountered something that would change everything. A fellow inmate's tale of an unsolved murder due to lack of a body. The phrase that stuck with him was chilling: no body, no crime. Upon release, he rented a basement workshop in Gloucester Road and filled it with drums, carboys, rubber gloves, and gallons of sulfuric acid. His first known victim was William McSwan, a former employer whom Hay lured under the pretense of catching up over drinks. Once inside the basement, Hay struck him with a blunt object and placed the body into a large drum, which he then filled with acid. Within hours, the flesh had melted, the bones dissolved, and what remained was a black sludge that he poured down a drain. He forged McSwan's signature and began collecting rent from his victims' properties, living comfortably while assuming his identity. To everyone else, McSwan had simply left London. Hay sent fabricated letters and paid visits to mutual acquaintances, impersonating him without raising suspicion. 2 years later, when McSwan's elderly parents began asking questions, Hay invited them over for tea and did the same to them. Each time, the process was the same: kill, dissolve, dispose, and then forge documents to access their assets. He invested the stolen money into luxury items, fine suits, a car, and nights at the Onslow Court Hotel, where he became a familiar and respected guest. He frequented cocktail bars, charmed strangers, and even attended church services, always tipping generously and engaging in polite conversation. To the outside world, John George Hay was a perfect English gentleman, soft-spoken, thoughtful, and a touch mysterious. But below street level, in a room with no windows and a floor stained by acid, he was rehearsing his next crime. His need for money and the belief in his own legal loophole kept pushing him forward. In 1948, he met Dr. Archibald Henderson and his wife Rose, an older couple selling their house. Hay pretended to be a wealthy property buyer and lured them to his workshop under the pretense of signing paperwork. Both were murdered and dissolved just like the others. Hay's only mistake came later. He kept Rose Henderson's dog for a few days, and someone noticed. Still, the murders continued, each one executed with the same quiet precision, the same cold courtesy. But his obsession with perfection would become his downfall. In 1949, he targeted Olive Durand-Deacon, a wealthy widow and fellow hotel guest, who told him she was looking to invent a new type of manicure tool. Hay claimed to be an engineer and offered to help, inviting her to his workshop. She never returned. Unlike previous victims, Olive had no close family, but the hotel staff noticed her absence quickly. Police began asking questions, and Hay, still confident in his no body, no crime logic, cooperated freely. But forensic science had evolved. The basement floor still contained traces of fat, human gallstones, and part of Olive's dentures, impossible to dissolve completely. When Olive Deron-Deacon vanished, staff at the Onslow Court Hotel raised the alarm almost immediately. The elderly widow was punctual, well-liked, and had never missed a single afternoon tea. John George Hay, ever the gentleman, volunteered to help police, insisting he'd last seen her heading into town. But detectives found inconsistencies in his timeline. And more importantly, they found his workshop. Inside, they discovered rubber gloves, a gas mask, drums lined with acid residue, and a revolting sludge pooled near a rusted drain. Hay watched calmly as investigators sifted through the room, even offering them tea back at the hotel. But their patience cracked when a forensic chemist discovered small solid remains embedded in the sludge, a piece of a human foot, fragments of bone, and a set of dentures confirmed by Olive's dentist. Hay was arrested the same night, smiling as he shook the officer's hand. At the station, he made a chilling request. "Tell me frankly, what are the chances of me being released?" When told the evidence was damning, he confessed immediately. Not just to one murder, not even 3. He admitted to 6. One by one, he described how he lured each victim, killed them, dissolved the bodies, and disposed of the remains. He even shared details no one else could have known: the brands of acid, the specific tools, and the exact placement of the drums. But what unsettled detectives the most wasn't the confession. It was his tone. Soft, even cheerful. As if describing a recipe or holiday plans. He showed no remorse, only fascination with whether his legal theory, no body, no crime, had been correct. For weeks, investigators combed the area surrounding the workshop, pulling up soil, testing water sources, and examining the building's drains. They found enough human residue to confirm 6 deaths, possibly more. In jail, Hay began drawing sketches of his workshop, chemical diagrams, and abstract figures with melting faces. He also requested access to a Bible, not for prayer, but to study Old Testament punishment laws. He told guards he expected to be hanged, but hoped to be remembered for his innovation. The trial began in July 1949 at Luz Assizes and became an instant media sensation. The press dubbed him the acid bath murderer, though some headlines preferred the gentleman killer. In court, Hay remained polite, calling the judge sir and complimenting the prosecutor's tie. His defense team pleaded insanity, citing childhood hallucinations and religious trauma. Hay, for his part, claimed he drank his victims' blood before disposing of them, a statement that stunned the court. But psychiatrists later concluded this was likely theatrical, an attempt to support his insanity plea. He claimed to have dreams filled with blood, fangs, and demons, but no evidence supported these claims beyond his own writings. The jury deliberated for only minutes. On August 10, 1949, John George Hay was found guilty of murder. He showed no emotion as the verdict was read. When asked if he had anything to say, he replied, "It's all been rather interesting." He was executed by hanging at Wandsworth Prison in August that same year. His final meal was an omelet and a cup of tea. But death didn't erase the mark he left behind. Hay's case forced British police to rethink how murder could be proved without a traditional body. It became a cornerstone case for forensic innovation, leading to advances in chemical residue detection and trace evidence recovery. It also shocked a nation that believed true evil always looked monstrous. Instead, they found it in a man who held doors open, tipped generously, and smiled during murder. Even after his execution, the mystery of John George Hay didn't end. Criminologists, psychologists, and journalists all sought to answer one question: what turns a man of charm, intelligence, and refinement into a serial killer with acid and blood in his wake? Hay's childhood was marked by deep religious extremism. His father, a member of the Plymouth Brethren, taught him the world was evil and only their family would be saved. They surrounded their home with a high fence, isolating themselves from neighbors and joy alike. Hay wasn't allowed to play with other children or listen to music. He once said he grew up believing God watched his every move, and so did his parents. When he was caught lying as a boy, his father showed him a birthmark on his head and claimed it was God's punishment. This left Hay believing in divine surveillance, a warped sense of guilt, fear, and self-importance. Yet outside the home, he played a different role. In school, he was praised for his piano skills and sharp mind. He won scholarships. He spoke eloquently. But as he entered adulthood, he began slipping into fraud and forgery. He spent time in prison for scams, always presenting himself as a misunderstood genius. Each time he was released, his crimes escalated, and then came the murders. Psychologists speculated that Hay's obsession with acid, blood, and erasing people was both practical and symbolic. Practically, it was meant to leave no trace, to support his no-body, no-crime fantasy. Symbolically, it may have been an attempt to purge himself of sin, shame, or powerlessness. The alleged blood drinking, whether real or fabricated, tapped into something deeper, a twisted hunger for control and transformation. He didn't just want to kill, he wanted to dissolve his victims into nothing, to become God in his own laboratory. Some experts likened his mind to that of a narcissistic inventor, building a private ritual of purification masked as murder. One investigator later said, he didn't see people, he saw formulas. Hay's legacy became a case study in how evil can wear a smile and a suit. In the years that followed, his crimes were cited in legal texts and forensic science lectures across Britain. The term acid bath murder entered public vocabulary, and true crime enthusiasts still debate whether he drank his victims' blood or simply said so for effect. To this day, tourists occasionally pass the old site of Hay's workshop in Crawley. There's no plaque, no memorial, just a patch of ground where history once melted into horror. But the real weight of Hay's story isn't in what he did. It's in how easily he hid it. He didn't wear a mask. He didn't hide in shadows. He smiled, shook hands, and opened doors, all while plotting his next victim. In the end, John George Hay left Britain not just with bodies and acid, but with a deeper fear. That evil can be soft-spoken, well-mannered, and perfectly polite. And that sometimes the most dangerous man in the room is the one offering you tea. If you want to uncover more disturbing cases like this, don't forget to subscribe to Files of the Damned. There are many more stories buried in the dark, waiting to be reopened.